This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Ronald Reagan's second oath was taken indoors.
It can track your whereabouts. It can read your text messages.
It's not just entertainment, but it's also people's livelihood.
The guy sitting behind the Resolute desk means what he says and says what he means.
Abortion on demand throughout all 9 months of pregnancy.
It may take weeks to confirm the cabinet.
These guys can eat.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. 3 days away, the inauguration of President-elect Donald J. Trump will be moved indoors. It's just too cold outside.
The president-elect posted the weather forecast for Washington, D.C. with the wind chill factor could take temperatures into severe record lows. So he has ordered the inauguration address, the prayers, and other speeches to be delivered inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda.
The public invited to a stadium nearby to watch on screens. You can fit 1.4 million people on the open National Mall, but not nearly as many as the Capital One Center.
The capacity is just 20,356. That is way smaller than the National Mall.
It's been decades since we've seen a president sworn in inside.
The last time this happened was 40 years ago when Ronald Reagan's second oath was taken indoors in the Capitol Rotunda.
The Family Life News team will have live coverage of all the festivities starting Monday at noon. It's been like watching a tennis match today with TikTok. On Sunday, a ban takes place on new downloads of the social media app until it's sold. That ban was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court this morning, and senators worried about security applauded it.
It can track your whereabouts. It can read your text messages. It can track your keystrokes. It has access to your phone records.
Then hours later, President Trump said he'd block the ban, and in a moment, influencers across the U.S. breathed a sigh of relief.
It's not just like entertainment, but it's also people's livelihood that they use to pay, their groceries, their rent, their utilities, all that.
TikTok CEO immediately issuing a statement.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States.
Trump, though, said he's equally concerned about security. He's expected to put pressure on China's president to have the app sold ASAP to an American company. Pundits say Xi Jinping respects Donald Trump.
I think it's going to be a much improved relationship from the standpoint of Xi Jinping knows that the guy sitting behind the Resolute desk means what he says and says what he means. Under President Biden, Xi Jinping showed extraordinary disrespect for the United States and the office of the president because he didn't respect the man who was sitting behind the desk. Adversaries like China, they pay attention and they adjust accordingly. China is going to be open to having constructive conversations with the United States because they're afraid of what might happen if President Trump has to uphold American interests.
The woman tapped to be the next head of the Department of Homeland Security was grilled on Capitol Hill today. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem held her own against questioning.
I guess I'm uncertain about roles and responsibilities regarding your position and Tom Homan's. I guess I just want to ask you just point blank, who's going to be in charge of the border?
Well, the president will be in charge of the border. It's a national security issue, and the president is in charge of this country and has made a promise to the American people, and we will fulfill his agenda.
Well, that was a good answer. It's the answer I would have given as well.
Noem has been tasked by Trump to enforce the mass deportation of dangerous illegal immigrants. If confirmed, she would serve as the nation's 8th Secretary of Homeland Security. A couple of other Trump cabinet picks could be seated as soon as Monday. They're John Ratcliffe for CIA Director and Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. But for others, it won't be as easy.
It may take weeks to confirm the cabinet. There could be a filibuster on the nomination of Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth.
The Israeli cabinet has approved a ceasefire deal signed by negotiators. 33 hostages will be released by Hamas over the next 6 weeks in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Correspondent Richard Engel in Jerusalem.
This has been difficult. It is going to be difficult, but we are getting there.
Yael Eckstein with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews.
Every Israeli is right now holding their breath until we see those hostages walk over the border, re-enter
Israel and hug their families.
If it all works out as planned, the first hostages could be released Sunday or Monday, Inauguration Day. Former late-night talk show host Jay Leno is on the front lines feeding thousands of firefighters that are battling the wildfires in Southern California. He had this to say after a day of serving meals.
These guys can eat.
He says he has so much respect for the men in red after watching how they work close up.
I think the LA Fire Department is probably the best in the world. You know, I was at in Afghanistan, Bagram Air Force Base. It looked like that. You pull in kind of a hospital area here, men in tents sleeping over there. They're coordinating with helicopters, and it's a really military operation on the biggest scale. It's pretty amazing to watch.
40,000 acres of burning, 27 dead, 12,300 structures burned, and tens of thousands waiting to see if their homes are still there. And it's going to be cold when the Bills host the Baltimore Ravens at their big AFC football playoff matchup Sunday night in Western New York. Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen.
Just taking it one day at a time, and then controlling what I can control. And it's attitude and effort, and it's how we come out here and just try to put our best foot forward and try to execute on Sunday.
Wind chills will be in the single digits at Highmark Stadium for kickoff around 6:30 p.m. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a little more on those bitter temperatures ahead, affordability in New York, and the March for Life coming up in Pennsylvania. PA Family has a whole toolkit, and we'll tell you how to get it next after weather with Kevin Williams.
Tonight will be partly cloudy for a time, though clouds will fill back in overnight, below 19 to 24. Clouds will thicken up Saturday morning with snow arriving mixed with rain. Any accumulations will be slight. High temperatures 30s to near 40. But significant snow will be a risk across eastern Pennsylvania. It will also include areas near and east of the Binghamton area. Elsewhere on Sunday, much colder, cloudy with flurries. Temperatures falling into the teens. Lake effect snow and bitter cold early next week.
Thank you, Kevin. It is Friday, and that means a check-in with our men in the know at the state capitals in New York and Pennsylvania. It is Capital Connection. Michael Gear with PA Family and Jason McGuire of New York Families. The two sat down with our own Bob Price. Let's listen in.
You know, if I had a nickel for every time I heard the word affordability come up this week in Albany, I think that's the issue right now. Yeah. Democrats, including Governor Kathy Hochul, seem to have gotten the message of the last election, and so they are trying to position themselves as moving to the center. You know, the proof will be in the pudding. The governor is facing a re-election in 2026. She's running scared right now, and I think that means she's giving away the store. She's having an Oprah moment with a car for everyone.
Yeah, I guess. When was the last time a Democrat was advocating for a middle-class tax cut like she did in that speech, Jason?
Oh, you know, it's really stunning. I mean, in fact, the location of where the State of the State was held was a return to the Pataki years. It's the same location where Governor George Pataki used to hold his State of the State addresses. And so it really takes us back just a very different time in New York. And it'll be interesting to see where the governor goes and where the legislature lets her go in the rest of the session.
Oh, they're off and running as well in Harrisburg, Mike. I know that in the House especially, you're watching a number of bills, dozens of bills, in fact. I think you told me there are over 30 that would radically promote and expand abortion. Can you be more specific as to what this dangerous legislation would do if passed?
Yeah, so in the last session, which just ended, at the end of last year, there were dozens of these pro-abortion bills that were introduced. And now here already in the first days of the session, really already out of the gate, we have a major pro-abortion bill introduced by House Democrats, 30 legislators, all Democrats, signing on to the bill as co-sponsors. And that's House Bill 26, which they've euphemistically titled the Reproductive Freedom Act. This bill would repeal and replace all aspects of Pennsylvania's Abortion Control Act, replacing it with a wish list of the pro-abortion lobby. It would effectively allow for abortion on demand throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. It would remove the current law prohibiting abortions after 24 weeks, no more parental notification, no conscience or religious liberty protections for doctors or other medical professionals who don't want to participate in abortion. This is terrible legislation.
Sanctity of Human Life Sunday is coming up just a couple days. This Sunday, January 19th, of course, there's the big National March for Life next week. What can people do in Pennsylvania this year to support life?
Well, it's vital that they do take a role in supporting life in Pennsylvania, given the anti-life push in our culture these days. Our team has created a Sanctity of Life Church Toolkit for this Sunday, January 19th, and you can get that through our website, free at pafamily.org. This Church Toolkit provides guidance for pastors, churches, and individuals to protect and promote life. And, of course, we always encourage support for your local pregnancy resource centers, whether here in Pennsylvania or New York, through your finances, prayer, and volunteering. And, of course, we encourage being responsible citizens, using your voice to oppose bills like the one I talked about, House Bill 26, the so-called Reproductive Freedom Act.
Energy issues is not a topic we discuss a lot, but it is important, especially with a new administration in power in just a couple days. Jason, Governor Hochul's war on energy has many wondering how this trickles down to the average New Yorker. We're already hearing that home heating costs will go up. Gas prices may go up by as much as 22 cents a gallon. Why this rush to force electrification down the throats of New York State residents?
Well, again, going back to the state of the state, we have seen this major push for what you've stated, and we do see prices increasing, and yet there was a crack in the state of the state where it appears the governor may be backing off of some of these proposals. Again, I don't know if the legislature is going to let her do that, but when there's now talk of perhaps nuclear energy and different things coming to our state, she's trying to show that she is all aboard the climate change train and wants to ride that. But on the other hand, she recognizes that when families are facing increased costs for basic things like utilities, they're less likely to elect her again. And so she's trying to have it both ways. And I don't know how she's going to survive with a foot in each camp.
And Michael, House Democrats are warming up to the idea of energy exploration as well. The chairwoman of the House Energy Committee said some things this week concerning oil and gas exploration. Did that shock you at all?
It appears that some of the Democrats here in Pennsylvania are paying attention to what the voters were communicating. People, no matter their party registration, want to be able to afford to stay warm on frigid January days like today. I think that's what, this Democrat chair of the Energy Committee, House Energy Committee, she's from Philadelphia, in support of expanded energy production would have been a surprise maybe a year ago, but given the results of the election and the cost of energy and the fact that people want to stay warm, maybe it's not quite so much a surprise.
That's Michael Gear with PA Family and Jason McGuire of New York Families. You can get that toolkit at pafamily.org. You can also subscribe, listen to, and share Capital Connection and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report brought to you by Faithward Advisors. The Dow is up 335 points, NASDAQ rose 292, and the S&P 500 up 59 points. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
So a guy inherits $100,000 and he's thrilled. It's almost enough to pay off his student loans. Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. Student loan debt is no joke for today's college graduates. And not just student loans. Some leave college with tons of consumer debt, too. Like everyone else, students need to make a monthly budget and stick to it. The free FaithFi app can help you do that. You also need to cut out all unnecessary spending and look for discounts. Most schools offer them for things like concerts and sporting events. Then use apps like Shop Savvy, Coupon Cabin, or Honey to save money on things you need to purchase. Finally, consider working part-time while in school to reduce the amount you have to borrow. Your future self will thank you. Connect with a certified Kingdom advisor who's been trained to deliver financial advice that aligns with your Christian values by visiting our website, faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, how would you like $1,000 to go to school? It's happening in Michigan, no strings attached. We'll hear that story next after weather with Kevin Williams.
We're tracking number one, a disturbance tomorrow that'll bring some wet snow. A storm system along the coast that will threaten accumulating snow of some import across eastern Pennsylvania. Then a bitter blast that'll carry us well into next week. For tonight, clouds breaking and any flurries fading. Low temps 20s. Tomorrow, turning cloudy, wet snow will arrive mixed with rain, high temperatures 30s to near 40. And then much colder Sunday, accumulating snow across eastern Pennsylvania that could become significant, and that could include areas east of the Triple Cities. Elsewhere, Sunday mostly cloudy with a touch of snow flurries and much colder with temperatures in the teens and 20s, sharply colder early next week.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that mercury. Finally, at 5, we're learning more about a program in Detroit, Michigan, where kids get paid for attendance. A lot. The district trying a perfect attendance program in public schools and says so far in Detroit it is working. Last year, 65% of kids weren't coming. So the superintendent decided to give each child $200 every 2 weeks, up to $1,000 if they come to class. Some parents like it.
To just give the students some incentives to come to school.
I think it's a good idea, anything that's going to help the kids be better and then put money in their pocket.
But parent Danny Foster says the school is missing the boat.
I mean, if you're just going to pay them to come, that's not going to achieve anything. So I think it has to be that, okay, you come to school, you work on your grades, because that's what the bottom line of it should be.
Cash for Class in Detroit, Michigan. And that's the world that we live in for Friday, the 17th of January. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.